Hey, what's going on? This is Jay from Sony Alpha Lab, and in this tutorial I'm going to go over exporting in Lightroom. In this case it's going to be Lightroom 4, but it really doesn't matter. It's all pretty much the same. I apologize for the little bit of background noise. It's my laptop. My microphone broke, so I'm just recording right into the actual laptop. So it's going to have a little bit of computer, that buzz or hum in the background there. I'll try to edit it out, but anyway, exporting in Lightroom. Check this out. Now, what we have here is a bunch of images from this month, basically. Here's all the product shots that I took of the Sony Nex5M with the Sigma lenses, blah, blah, blah. And what I had to do was I had to export these for, the web to upload them to my website. So it's very easy. And exporting is very powerful. And basically what you're doing is saving for the web, or you're saving it for a printer, or you're saving it to send it to a client. You're saving it for a book, perhaps. You're saving it for a future time for backup purposes. There's a whole bunch of reasons why you could be exporting files. But I'm just going to cover them quickly here, and I'm going to show you how to do it. It's very, very simple. So let me just click on a file here. What you got to do is you got to right-click. That's one way, right? Export. And then you just scroll down. And notice when you export, you have all these options. Now, this is user presets right here, so that's why you're seeing all this stuff. But the basic stuff is up here, Lightroom presets. You got that, and then now this is other software I have installed. And if you install this stuff, you'll see it pop up here as well. But otherwise, you're probably not going to see that, and your user presets is probably going to be empty if you've never done this before. So that's why you're seeing so much here, just to let you know. What we're going to do though is we're going to just do export, okay? And now that you're in here, this is the main export dialog box. And there's a bunch of options here. Up here on the top, you have export to. This is where you can select email or a drive, and you can actually burn right to DVD if you want. We're just going to do hard drive for now. If you go through, well, let's just do the email one quick, because that's probably what you're going to most likely do. Right here is your options. File naming, you can change the name of the file if you want. I usually just leave it as is. Video is not going to apply for email. And down here, color space, sRGB is what you're going to want to use for email. And for the web in general, these other color spaces are more for printing. So you don't want to use these unless, like I said, you're sending it to a specific lab or you're printing with these wider gamuts. Otherwise, you're going to want to use sRGB. Quality, 60%, believe it or not, for the web is pretty darn good, and you're really not going to tell much of a difference between 70 and 60. I usually leave it around 65, but like I said, for 60 you can't really tell, just do some tests. Export one and then put it at 100, export another and put it in 60, and compare the two in Photoshop, and I'm telling you, you'll barely notice the difference. But anyway, that's quality. And you can also limit the file size, which is cool, and then that'll adjust the quality for you. So if you have a specific file size criteria that you have to meet, this is an easy way to do that. I know a lot of times when you try to upload a picture for websites or whatever, they'll limit you to certain file sizes because they don't want you to fill up their server. And people don't know, they'll upload a 25 meg raw file not thinking anything about it. But sometimes, like I said, they limit you, and if you don't realize, if you don't want to have to do it 5 times to figure out what size you need or whatever, you can just simply click this option and then put your file size right there, like 100K or whatever. Very cool feature. I haven't used it in a long time, but it does come in handy from time to time. Now, image sizing, what we have here is pretty basic. This is how you're going to resize your image. Now, you can set it all different ways. I like to use the long edge option for the internet and my website because it makes it so if you have a vertical photo, it's going to be no longer than whatever the pixels are. And if you have a horizontal photo, it's going to be no more than 500, for example. That's what long edge means. But you can simply do width and height and put a custom in there. You can do megapixels. If someone says, send me a 5 meg pic, and you don't feel like doing the math, it's got all these things built in. It's great. But like I said, the easiest one is pretty much dimensions. Width and height works pretty good, and you can adjust this in inches and all that. But for the web, I like to use long edge. And I usually use, for Google Plus, I upload at 1200 pixels. That's pretty big, but that's what I like to do. It's nice, big, and crisp, and most people have monitors that are into photography anyway that can display that with no problem. And then they get to see nice, crisp images. if they're, if you're asking somebody for a critique or something like that, they really don't want to look at a 500 pixel image. 1200 pixels is really the way to go. But you don't want to put your stuff out there without having copyright information. So you want to put this on here. Check this out, metadata. Here's your options: copyright only, copyright and contact info only, all except camera and camera raw info. This is the one I like to use, all camera. I like everything to be on there because I like, especially on Google Plus or Facebook or something, or DP Review, or some forums are more powerful than others. There's what's called EXIF information, and it has like shutter speed, things like that, what time you took the picture, all sorts of stuff like that. And a lot of people, especially if you're posting somewhere where you're getting critiques, want that information. So that's what this is all about. But it will make your file size a little larger. So if you just want to put the minimal, copyright only, will make your file size a little bit smaller. But right here is how you really want to export for the web in particular. If you want people to know what your settings were on your camera, that's where you want to make sure you have selected. And remove location info if you don't want people to know where you live, etc. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me just go back to image sizing one more time. This don't enlarge checkbox, make sure you check that, because sometimes, especially if you're doing stuff for the web, because sometimes if your pixel dimension isn't right, like for me, for example, I do 100% crops a lot of the time. So I really, if they're physically less than 1200 pixels, like say I do 100% crop. Let me just cancel this quick and I'll show you, because this is kind of an important concept. Let me look at one of these. I think I have 100% crop. Oh, here. All right, so here's the original file, right? And here's the 100% crop. Now, if you look at this, the 100% crop's pretty small from left to right. It's really not that big. Let me see here. Let me go to metadata, and I'll show you how big it is. Let's see. Should say the resolution over here somewhere. Yeah, see, it's right here, cropped, 1989 by 660. So if I were to export this file, right? Let me go back to the export. If I were to export this file and this was unchecked, it would enlarge this image to 1200 pixels. And I don't want to do that, because this image is 100% crop of my original image, so it's only 989. So I want to have this checked, okay? That will prevent images like this, the one behind this dialog box, from enlarging when you don't want them to. Because in my case, for my reviews, I don't want to enlarge them. I want them to be the actual 100% crop. And I always make sure they're 1200 pixels, because I don't want any extra cropping going on or interpolation. I apologize if this is more information than you need, but I just want to go make sure I'm thorough here so I don't have to, do it again. There's a lot of extra info I'm giving you, so just bear with me. Let me put it that way, okay? All right, so what we're doing is just a basic export for the web, and we're just going through each thing here, each little option in the export dialog box. All right, output sharpening. This is a great feature. Sharpening for screen, that's basically for the web. You can play with this. I usually leave it to low, but for reviews and stuff, I usually don't even check this. But if you're going for a forum or something and you want to add just a little extra sharpening during the resizing process, because you got to assume you're resizing it here. The original file is going to be like whatever, 4,000, and you're making it 1,200. So if you tell it to sharpen a little here, it'll just crisp it up a little bit for you. So I like to have it set here for the web. For prints, I usually use matte paper or semi-gloss. So I usually have it set to matte, and then I will set to, depending if I'm printing at home on an inkjet printer or if I'm sending to the lab, I will set this to standard or low. But again, these are things you really need to play with depending on your images, because you could be sharpening them in Lightroom more than I am, and when you export it, you might not need as much, or vice versa. You might not sharpen at all in Lightroom, and you might want to rely on this little export to sharpen it for you, you know what I mean? So, but in any event, we're going for the web, so I'm going to go to screen, and I'm going to go to low. That's how I like to have it set. So now moving down to metadata, we already covered that. I skipped output sharpening by accident before, that's why I went back. Now watermark, check this out. This is really cool. If you go in here and you just, as soon as you check this box, this highlights, and then you can click this little arrow here, and now you have options, and just simply click edit watermarks. It's really, really, really simple. All right, so now default just at Jason Herman right here came up because of the EXIF information, I believe, or I don't know. I honestly can't remember where that came from. It comes from something in Lightroom, I think, or maybe it was just set that way. But you may or may not see your name here. but I'm just going to do Sony Alpha Lab, SonyAlphaLab.com. Right, now check this out. You can customize it. All sorts of options here. You can change the color, see this? So I can just make, looks kind of silly like that, but you can make it black. You know, whatever you want to do. Your options are pretty much endless. I'm just going to go back to white. You got your shadow option. You can turn that on and off. I like to leave it on. I like to lower the opacity a little bit so it's not so obnoxious. See that? Just lower that down a little bit. And you can change the position of it if you want it on the right or the left. I like to save a preset for the right and the left, depending on the image, because sometimes I want it on the right and sometimes I want it on the left. So check that out. Right around 70 for the opacity. Size I'm just going to leave, and then you can tweak the adjustment here with these horizontal, which is cool. You can get it off the bottom just a little more, and off the side just a little bit, right around there. Alright, that looks good. Now, if I hit the save button, it's going to say what do I want to name it. So I'll just name it right here, Sony Alpha Lab, and I'll do dash left side. Yeah, Sony Alpha Lab left, and I'll just put for web dash WEB for web or something. You can name it whatever you want, and I'll create that. Alright, so now I have that preset down here under watermark, and that's how you can simply create your preset if you want. Alright, so now that I have this all configured, and notice on the top here it's still set to email. I didn't realize that. I was just looking for the folder. So if I click export, it's going to open up the email. Let me show you. So you can just enter the person, the subject, boom, and it's going to send it out. Pretty sweet. So let me just go back to export. Alright, makes no difference. You just got to change this option up here to hard drive. Alright, everything's going to be the same. Everything I told you a second ago is going to be exactly the same. The only difference is you're just going to have a few more options here, like this one, export location. So this is where you want to export it. Obvious places come up automatically, but I'm going to go to specific folder. Alright, and now I can choose. Here, actually, let me slow down. I selected specific folder, so then this option to choose over here comes up, or this little arrow here for the most recent places. So I'm just going to do choose, and then I'm going to navigate over to my website area, which is over here. And then I can export it in my reviews folder. Here's my reviews folder. So I'm just going to click choose. And now, see this checkbox here? I'm going to put it in a subfolder, and I'll just name it, test Lightroom export. So it's going to name the folder test LR export, and it's going to put these two images, because I have two selected right now. It's going to put these two images in that folder. All right. So renaming to, I might as well rename these quick. Let me just do, yeah, that's the date and the numerical sequence. Perfect. Alright, and then scroll down, video. Quality 65, that's good. sRGB, that's correct. Long edge is 1200, don't enlarge, that's good. Sharpen for screen, low, okay. Okay, that's good. Alright, so now we're just going to click export. But right before I click export, we can go over here and add this as a preset. Alright, so let me click the add option, and let me add, let's see, I'm going to add another preset, and this is going to be test. I'll just call it test _ and then you can pick what folder you want, or create a new folder, which is awesome. You can create a new folder just for specific things, like I'm going to create a new folder called the web, alright? Click create, and now I can save this preset for test, and then I can have another one within web saved for DP review, and then another one saved for eBay or whatever. So you can have all these different presets all organized. It's so powerful. It's incredible, okay? So like I said, this is a lot of information, and I apologize, but I'm just going to click create now, and there we go. So now we have a new preset, and it's in a new folder, no less. Nice and organized. Alright? Very cool. So now I could change settings in here. Like, watch this. I'll change some settings around. Boom, boom, boom. Whatever, uncheck that. And now all I have to do is go over here to the presets and click it. And everything comes back. See that? Everything's checked. All fixed. Boom. Excellent. Alright, so now I'm just going to click export. And notice up here on the top left, it's exporting. And there's also an option. Let me just show you. I forgot to show you that. I wasn't there when I first did it. If you scroll all the way down to the bottom, under post-processing. I forgot to open that. After export, you can have it show in Finder, or you can have it open in Photoshop, and a lot of aftermarket software will work through here. If you wanted to apply pre-sharpening, for example, using the NIC filters to like hundreds of images, you can do that using this export feature, but we're just doing for the web. So usually I have do nothing selected, but in this case I want to show it in the Finder. So I'm just going to export the same exact thing again, and I want to show you what happens. Look at this. The following file already exists because I just exported it. So this makes sense. So it's warning me. So this is good that this warning came up, right? Let me show you something. Cancel. Let me go back to export. All right, in the export dialog box, see this right here where it says, let me just click on test, make sure I'm on the right one. All right, see this under existing files? It says ask what to do. You can have it overwrite without warning if you want, skip, choose name for the exported file. I like to do the ask what to do. That's definitely the way to go, all right? So click export, and it's going to ask what to do. In this case, I'm going to overwrite it because I'm just exporting the same thing. So I'll click overwrite. And it should, once they're done exporting, it should open them up in Finder for me. Didn't work. Did I not select it? Oh, you know what? Sorry. I forgot. I hit the test again, so it unselected this. Let me do show in Finder and hit export. Let me do overwrite. Now it should pop up in Finder when it exports. I forgot that I hit the test. Yeah, see here. So it opens up in Finder, and now you can just look at them. You hit spacebar and get a quick look. All right, so check this out. Now I have all these images. I want to export all of them to the web. So I'm going to hold down Shift, and now look at, I have a whole bunch of images selected. All right. So if I hit export, you can right click, go to export, or you can go up here actually, file, export, and there's options up here, or you can do Shift Command E as a shortcut on a Mac, Control E for Windows. A couple other things. You can export as a catalog. That's kind of advanced. I'm not going to go through that in this tutorial. And then right here is your preset. Export with preset. Check that out. So now you can scroll down and look, there's our little preset that we created. So now you don't even have to go into that export dialog box. I can just click that right there, and it'll export all these images to that preset, whatever that preset is. Very, very powerful. And that's the reason why I went through all that to show you. You know, it was a little longer and drawn out and more information than you might have needed, but it had an ending to it, and then this is the ending right here. I wanted to show you. So now, like that work, you just do it one time, and now you can just export so fast. I mean, I can go through here, boom, 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 do a few files at a time, you know, whatever. So again, very powerful is the point. All right, so now let's say I want to export for print. All right, so this picture of Layla, I really like this picture. I decided maybe I want to print this. I actually took this with the 50mm f1.8 OSS Sony lens. That thing is awesome. Definitely highly recommend it. Look how sharp this is. I gotta fix that before I print it though, that little eyelash thing there. But anyway, let me show you how to do that. Let me go to, actually, let's click the print tab quick. Let me go in here and show you something. Under the print tab, you can actually see this right on the print job. You can select JPEG file. So this is another way you're kind of exporting. I just wanted to show you this because it's pretty cool. You can change the DPI, and you can like send it to a customer, for example, and you can like simulate the actual print, like draft mode printing and stuff. So if you're going back and forth with another professional photographer, a lot of times when you're printing, you know, you don't have it adjusted the same for the web as you do for a print. A lot of times the blacks aren't the same, things like that. So when you're printing, you have printer profiles and all sorts of other things involved. So it's common that you would have, the picture would look a little bit different, and you might need to send it back and forth to the lab, or, you know, etc. Okay? So this is where you would want to do that, because you can set the color profile to whatever you want. It's pretty easy. And it might be easier for you to do it through here. I just wanted to show you. I mean, I like to use the export dialog, but this is another way to export. And if you use some of these features here, like margins and things, you can actually create borders on images and then export them and have, like, you know, it'll almost look like the image is framed and stuff. I need to make a tutorial on that, but it's just another couple of options I needed you to know about. All right, so let me go back to library mode, okay? And I'm just going to right click on this, and I'm going to go to export because I'm going to export this for print. All right, so I'm going to send this to the lab, let's say, okay? So folder, this time I'm going to use the desktop. I'll just click on desktop, click choose. All right, put in subfolder, yes. I'm going to do lab prints, I'll call it, right? Lab prints. All right. Ask what to do, that's good. Rename to. I don't really want to rename them. I want them to be the original name just so I can reference them easier. If I change the name originally, you know, that would make more sense, but for this purpose, I'm not going to rename it, like I said, because I want to be able to reference the file easy if I have a problem with it or whatever. All right, quality. Most labs recommend that you send at 80% if you're sending JPEG files. Okay, so that's where I'm going to have it set. And sRGB color space, I'm going to have it set to that as well because most labs require that. However, you may need to use another color space, or you might have custom profiles built here, and that's where they would be. All right. So sRGB though is most likely what you're going to want to use for most labs. I'm talking like MPix, WHCC, Adorama, for example, things like that. Walmart, you know, all that type stuff. That's going to be sRGB. Super Pro labs and things, they might require, you know, larger files. You might have to send the RAWs if they want, things like that. So if you're doing that type of stuff, you're going to need more tutorials, trust me. So for now, just assume that sRGB is most likely what you're going to use, okay? All right, so what we're going to want to do for image resizing, you don't have to do this. A lot of times the lab will do it for you. You could just leave this as is, like unchecked, and just upload the image at full res, and the lab will take care of it for you. But Adobe does a pretty good job, and you know it's not a bad idea to get it the exact size you want. So for this, I'm going to do a 4:6 for this one. All right, so I'm just going to go to width and height. I'll leave it on that one. That's good. And then I'm going to go to size. So I'm going to do a width. In this case, it's going to be 4 because it's backwards. The width and height. So I'll do 4:6. Don't enlarge. And pixels, I'm going to do 260. Actually, I'll do 300. 300 is normally what you're going to do for most labs, so I'll just do 300. Sharpen for screen, or sharpen for, you're going to want to do whatever type of paper. I'm just assuming that you're going to go to a quick lab or something, so glossy is usually what comes out of those machines. So glossy standard will probably do a good job. I would try that first, depending on how much you sharpen your image. For this image, I would just do probably glossy standard and see how it came out. Metadata, I would keep that intact. Watermarking, you're going to want to uncheck that because you're printing it. You're not going to want a watermark. Maybe you will. I don't want one. Post-processing, again, you can show it in Finder, open it up in Photoshop if you want to do some final touches on it before you send it to the lab. And that's pretty much it. Alright, so I'm just going to click Export. And it should go to the desktop. And here it is, and you could see, if I make this a little bigger, you could see it's in the desktop in the folder called Lab Prints, and here's the image. That looks pretty good. Looks really good. Alright, so I'm just going to go through that one more time, alright? Let me pick a different image here. So let's say I'm going to get it printed, and it's going to get printed big, alright? Let's see. Let me see if I have a decent picture here. Oh yeah, this one's pretty cool. Alright, so I want to get this picture printed big, right? So this is what I'm going to do. It's black and white also, kind of important, but sometimes. So let me show you what I'm going to do here. First thing I want to do is I'm going to right-click it because I want to make a virtual copy, alright? I really don't want to change the crop of the original. I always like to have the original. So if a customer, for example, wants a print, you know, I don't want to have to edit the original file over. So what I would do here if I was going to print this in the lab, or for that matter, if I was going to export it for the web, the first thing I would do is create a virtual copy. Like I said, it's because I'm changing the crop. Like this is how I want the image to be viewed, let's say. So, for the print, I need to change it, okay? So I'm just going to right-click it and do Create Virtual Copy. All right, check it out. So now down below here, you can see there's another picture of the daisy, and there's a little corner folded over. See that? That's telling us that it's a virtual copy. So now, if we go into the Develop module and we crop it, I'm just going to hit the Crop option here. Well, you can see that the image is obviously already cropped heavily, but I want to crop it at a different aspect ratio because we're going to get it printed big. So I'm going to select this aspect. See this thing right here? Aspect and then original. I'm going to select this, and I know we're going to get it printed pretty large. So I'm going to go to custom here. And let's see, we're going to get it printed at an 8 by 10. Oh no, let's say it's a 16 by 20. 16 by 20. Click OK. There we go. Now our aspect ratio is correct. And what I mean by that is like the crop. See how it's more of a square? I'll compare it with the original and show you in a second. Alright, so I'm going to zoom in a little bit more here. Alright, something like that looks pretty good. Okay, so now here's the one that we're going to get printed, 16 by 20, okay? And here's the original. Now notice how this one's much, thinner and wider because it's more of a pano. It's more of a 4 by 6 orientation, which is what the sensor looks like on the camera. But for the print, we want it 16 by 20. So I just resized it using the crop tool. I apologize, I did not resize it. I just cropped it. I didn't resize it. So it's the correct aspect ratio of 16 by 20, which is the same as 4 by 5 and 8 by 10. Alright, so you can this is an aspect ratio, this isn't the actual size, alright? So you got to keep that in mind. It's a little bit confusing if you don't understand the ratios, but basically, notice a 4 by 6 image is thinner and wider than an 8 by 10. An 8 by 10 is more of a square, and that's what we're working with here, okay? So I hope that makes sense. Alright, let me export. And I'm going to go export. Alright, so now we're going to send this to Lab Prints again. Okay. And now this one we're definitely going to enlarge because it's pretty big. So the width is going to be 20. And the height is going to be 16. And the resolution is going to be 300, depending on what lab you're sending it to. Sharpen 4, whatever type of paper you're going to use. I'm doing this on matte paper. And I'm going to do low because I already have this sharpened as much as I want. I don't want to sharpen it anymore, so low will just keep it right about the same for the print. And I don't want watermark, export in Finder. Okay, that's pretty much all the settings look pretty good. sRGB, the width and the height is in there. Oh, don't enlarge. That's got to be unchecked for this particular one because it's going to have to enlarge it for sure. Alright, let's see. Alright, everything else looks pretty good. Alright, let me export. I could save this now as a print preset if I wanted to also, just so you know. But I'm just going to hit export. Alright, there it is. And if I hit spacebar, it'll zoom in, and there's the image. Looks pretty good. That's basically how you would export for the lab if you were going to print something. Now, normally you don't have something cropped as much as I do, but I wasn't using the correct focal length. Well, I wasn't using a macro lens, so I was using the resolution to my advantage and just cropping in on the image to make a more dramatic shot. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much it for now, and I hope you guys got something out of this. Like I said, Michelle made me blueberries the other day. They were unbelievable. Blueberry pancakes, I meant to say. And don't forget, you could always just type below, ask me a question. Hey Jay, what about this or what about that? I don't have a problem getting back to you. If you don't have time to watch the whole video again, just ask me a quick question or whatever. It's no problem. So that's about it for now, and I will catch up with you guys on Sony Alpha Lab